Howdy Beans, and welcome back to a magical, exciting, absolutely scrumdiddlyumptious episode of the Howdy Beans podcast. I'm your host, Luke the Howdy Bean. Hope you're doing well, hope you're all good. As per usual, today we're going to be looking at a movie that I promised all the way last year that I was going to look into. It's been one that I've wanted to do since the beginning of the podcast. It's a movie that a lot of people have been really excited for and asking me to do. So finally, I decided because it's Easter, I'm going to look into Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory from 1971, the OG, the Gene Wilder classic, the one that everybody grew up with, the one that everybody says is the best version, even though, and I'm sure it will come up later in the review and I'll mention it a few times, even though I do deeply love the Johnny Depp, Tim Burton one from like 2004, 2006, I still love this movie as well. I still have deep ties and deep memories to this movie. And to be honest, in my opinion, I think they're both brilliant and they both do excellent at trying to tell the story of Charlie and the Chocolate Factory that was, originally written by Roald Dahl. They both do a brilliant job. But this is the OG. This is the one that everybody says is the best one. So that's why I wanted to look into it, because I looked into the newish one last Easter. I figured I'll go all the way back and do this one. And maybe next year I'll look into Wonka, because I actually watched Wonka recently. And my views have somewhat changed on it. I won't go fully into depth on it, but it's not as bad as I remember it when I first watched it. It's still not good, and I still prefer the other two, but I can see what they were trying to do with the movie. And I'm sure, the more that I watch it and the more that it comes on, it will appeal to me probably a bit more and more each going on. But yeah, I still prefer the Tim Burton and this one, if I'm being completely honest. Wonka's for a new generation. It's just not for my generation. But yeah, so before we get into all of that and more, I want to get into a bit of housekeeping, because I like to keep my house nice and clean. So make sure that you follow me on Twitter at howdybeans_pod. If you listen to this on YouTube, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. If you listen to this on Spotify, don't forget to leave a 5-star rating and follow me there. Also, you can find the Howdy Beans podcast on TikTok and Instagram. Just type in the Howdy Beans podcast on those platforms and you'll find me there. So, first and foremost, happy Easter, everybody. Hope you're all absolutely getting chocolatey wasted, and you've got all the chocolate eggs and all the mini eggs, and you've done your Easter egg hunts, and it's been an absolute wonderful day. I'm sure that we're going to have a nice cooked dinner today, because we always do. We always do like a nice roast dinner on Easter. So I'm sure I'm going to have a nice roast dinner of like beef or chicken or lamb, or mostly always lamb, bit of mint sauce, swimming in gravy, potatoes, jackets, the works really. So I'm looking forward to that later. So hopefully you all get chocolatey wasted. Me, not so much. I'm not really much as a chocolate person as much anymore for many reasons. But this year I've decided to go on a bit of a boycott of chocolate. I won't go into it too much because I've got a lot to talk about today. But I've basically done a boycott of Cadbury's chocolate, which is our version of the Wonka Chocolate Factory here in the UK. And basically, I've gone on a boycott on them is because they're charging you more for the chocolate, but giving you less. You get less cocoa solids. They've basically filled it full of palm oil and palm fat, which, if you don't know, palm oil and palm fat are really bad for the environment, deforestation. It's also really bad for your health, and it's in practically everything. So I've just decided I'm not interested in Cadbury's anymore, and I've only really been eating chocolate that has no palm oil in it at all. And one thing I would recommend, if you are looking to kind of get palm oil out of your life, but you still want to eat chocolate, I highly recommend Milka. It is creamier, smoother, cheaper. You get 33% cocoa solids and is absolutely gorgeous. So I highly recommend that one. But they're not sponsored. That's the one I found, and that's the one I really, really gravitate towards to. But yeah, I'm doing a boycott on Cadbury's at the moment, and I think other people should too. And from what I've seen from the shelves in stores for Easter eggs, most people are as well. But again, that's neither here nor there. This is about Willy Wonka, not about Cadbury. I'm just putting my own little sort of personal opinion on it. Anyway, so why am I looking into this movie? Well, last year, as I said, I looked into Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, and it did really, really well. A lot of people really resonated with it. They really liked it. And I actually had a few people who were very sort of devout in saying, oh, I don't like that film. After listening to my review, went back and watched it and actually said, well, it's not actually that bad, and it did really, like I said, it did really well on Spotify, it did really, really well on YouTube. So I figured, I promised everybody I would. So I've decided this Easter, I'm going to look back into the Gene Wilder classic. And I, given my memories of it, this was my first introduction to Charlie and the Chocolate Factory. As I've said many times, growing up dyslexic, I didn't read many books or any books, to be honest. So I never got a chance to read the Charlie and Chocolate Factory book. I remember when I was in primary school, they basically, we sat around a teacher, and the teacher read a few chapters of Charlie and Chocolate Factory with us. And I remember we got to decorate our own chocolate bars and things like that. And we got to go into very sort of descriptive writing on like how would we make our own chocolate factory, or what would we have and what would we call their sweets and stuff like that. It was really, really fun. And that's a very sort of cool memory that I have in my mind. But my first ever sort of interaction to Charlie and Chocolate Factory was through this movie. And even at a young age, it's a very, very strange movie. And that's one of the things I found when looking at Charlie and Chocolate Factory. Everybody said to me, and I always had to laugh because I always thought, have you not watched the original? Do you not remember it as clearly? Because everybody used to go, oh, Charlie and Chocolate Factory, the Tim Burton film, it's too weird, it's too strange, too odd, like it's too dark. I'm like, did you not watch the 1971 one? Did you not have the moment where Charlie is standing outside the gates and you got that weird guy with the cart and the knives, and he's like, top of the airy mountains, oh, little green men, and really creepy. Like, he had no need to creep up on this little child at night when it's getting dark with like knives and all butcher sort of ornaments and scare the crap out of little Charlie. Or Slugworth. Charlie's running down the hall and all of a sudden Slugworth just appears menacing, with that really creepy alien sort of face that the man has, and then offers him money. That's weird. But this is the thing. If you watch any movies from the 70s, right, especially British sort of movies, or even sort of some American films as well, but if you watch any sort of cinema from the 70s, they were weird. They were strange. Like this movie has moments where you have like skits. For no apparent reason. Well, there is a reason to it, but for no real reason. They have skits of just like random, this woman being like, oh, your husband's been kidnapped. She's like, oh, my husband, I'll do anything. I'll pay absolutely anything they want. Tell them what they want. And the guy's on the phone, hangs up, and he's like, they want your supply of Wonka bars. And the woman's like, how about anything else? I'm like, and at a young age, I remember watching them going, what's this? What is this? It's weird. Like, even at a very young age, I was like, what? I want to be in the chocolate factory. What is this? I didn't get it. Again, as an adult, I've rewatched and I'm like, no, I get it. I like it now. But as a kid, I'm like, this is very strange, very weird. My favorite one is when you get the guy and he's got the computer, and he goes, I've programmed this computer so that it would tell us the exact location of the Wonka bar. And he beep, 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 into the computer, and the Wonka, he goes, the computer says, I won't tell you, that would be cheating. And then the guy looks at it and he laughs at the obviously investors. And he goes, he goes, I'm now telling the computer that I will share with him the grand prize. Car goes out and he goes, what would a computer do with a lifetime supply of chocolate? And the guy just like loses his cool. And then he's just like, I'm now telling the computer exactly what he can do with a lifetime supply of chocolate. He's like, bounce all the buttons. So there's certain moments where I'm like, yeah, it's great, but the movie is strange. Or like the best one, the most weirdest sort of traumatic sort of moment of them all is when they're going through the tunnel. And for no apparent reason, you've got Wonka going absolutely insane, batshit in the back. And then you've got these like visions all around the kids of like chickens getting the head chopped off, Slugworth's guts and gore, flies, rotten meat, and you're thinking, what's going on? What am I watching? So I feel like people kind of zone those bits out. Like they remember the magicalness, they remember Gene Wilder, they remember the whole sort of mystery and wonderfulness about it. But really, when you watch it, you're like, this is the kids' movie? Wow. Okay. I don't know what drugs they were on when they were making it, but okay, fine. But then again, it was the 70s. So it always really shocked me that people say how dark and strange and weird the Tim Burton one is, but then forget those parts in the 70s version, and they're like, oh, yeah, no, if anything, I'd say that movie's darker and stranger than the Tim Burton one. But again, that's my opinion. But I love them both. I think they both have great moments. Like my mum loves this one. My mum loves watching it, and she loves the Cheer Up Charlie song. Every time it's on, she will sit there and go, cheer up, Charlie. And, that's been a running joke in our family. So whenever anybody's sad, we'll go up to them and we'll go, cheer up, Charlie, and to make them laugh. It's become a bit of a meme in our household. It's a joke that we've done since as long as I can remember. And like we quote the movie all the time. So it is a family favourite. And I do know why so many people like it. I just couldn't get over the fact when people were saying that Charlie and Chocolate Factory, the Tim Burton one, was so strange and dark. And I'm like, this one's just as dark, probably more, But I love it. you do, because it's just the classic. It's great. But yeah, so that's sort of my memories of it, and I'm sure as we do the review, as I go back and watching it, we'll find more. I've got this movie on Blu-ray, so I'm looking forward to sort of giving it a watch and potentially going through some of the special features and stuff like that. Because I remember about a year or two ago on YouTube, I don't know if it's still on there, but there was the whole sort of like documentary, I think from like 2001, 2002, where they basically talked about the making of it. They got the whole cast together and how they talking about how they were in like I think it was like Germany or Belgium, I think there was for shooting the movie, and how it was and to film and where they stayed and how they had fun and all that. And yeah, so I look forward into all that. But let's get into it because I've got a lot to talk about in the production. So let's talk about the movie synopsis. So for anybody who doesn't know Charlie and Chocolate Factory, this is a synopsis for you. So a sweet boy from a poor family dreams of finding one of 5 golden tickets hidden inside chocolate bar wrappers, which will admit him to the eccentric and reclusive Willy Wonka's magical factory. One after another, tickets are discovered by ghastly children, but will the lad find the last remaining one and have all his dreams come true? That is your synopsis. As for the cast, so of course we have Gene Wilder as Willy Wonka, Jack Elberston as Grandpa Joe. I know that some people from like the ladies from Doom Generation really don't like Grandpa Joe, and I completely get it. His family's poor, his family's struggling. The young boy who should really be in school, doing studies, getting a life for him, is having to work jobs and a paper round just so he can put bread on the table and cabbage, and they have cabbage soup and bread, while Grandpa Joe's sitting in bed smoking cigars, living life. So I completely get why nobody likes him, but still. Then we've got Peter Ostrom as Charlie Bucket, Roy Kinnear as Mr. Salt, Julie Dawn Cole as Veruca Salt, Leonard Stone as Mr. Beauregard, Denise Nickerson as Violet Beauregard, Nora Deeney as Miss TV, Paris Temin as Mike TV, and Ursula Riut as Mrs. Gloop, and Michael Bolnier as Augustus Gloop. And that is your cast. Now, the production. There's a lot to talk about the production, which it makes sense because it is a movie that is widely loved by a lot of people. So I'm going to take a quick break and then I'm going to talk about the production. And I'm back. So I've split this up into different sections, as I always do, just because there is so much to talk about and to get into. So we're going to start with development because it's one of the shortest. So the idea for adapting the book into a film came about when director Mel Stewart 10-year-old daughter read the book and asked her father to make a film out of it. When Uncle Dave, producer Dave L. Wolper, who was not related to the Stewarts producing, Stewart showed the book to Wolper, who happened to be in the midst of talks with Quaker Oats Company regarding a vehicle to introduce a new candy bar from its Chicago-based bakery confectionaries subsidiary, which then renamed the Willy Wonka Candy Company and sold to Nestle. Wolper persuaded the company, which had no previous experience in the film industry, to buy the rights to the book and finance the picture for the purpose of promoting a new Quaker Oats Wonka bar. So that's the development. As for writing, so Wolper and Roald Dahl agreed that Dahl would also write the screenplay. Though credited for the film, Dahl had not delivered a complete screenplay at the start of production and only gave an outline pointing to sections of the book. Wolper called in David Saltzner for an uncredited rewrite after Dahl left over creative differences. Wolper promised to produce Saltzner's next film for his lack of a credit, as they needed to maintain credibility by keeping Dahl's name attached to the production. Also uncredited were several short humorous scenes by screenwriter Robert Kaufman about the golden ticket hysteria. Changes to the story included Wonka's character given more emphasis over Charlie. Slugworth, originally a minor character who was a Wonka industry rival in the book, reworked into a spy so that the film could have a villain for intrigue. The absence of Mr. Bucket, a belching belching scene added with Grandpa Joe and Charlie having fizzy lifting drinks. The walnut shelling squirrels changed to golden egg laying geese, and the ending dialogue. Saltzner also created a recurring theme that had Wonka quote from various literary sources, such as Arthur O'Shannonessi's Ode to Oscar Wilde's The Importance of Being Earnest, Samuel Taylor's Coleridge's The Rime of the Ancient Mariner, and William Shakespeare, The Merchant of Venice. After completing the screenplay, Saltzner was exhausted and went on vacation to a remote cabin in Maine. However, while filming the final scene, Stewart was unhappy with the ending, having Roald Dahl's version of Grandpa Joe just exclaiming, "Yippee!" The director tracked down the writer to the only phone in the area, which was attached to a tree. By chance, Saltzner was passing and answered the call. Stewart told him to think up an ending quickly, as the production was waiting at great expense. Saltzner could only recall the overused phrase to fairy tale endings, and therefore reworked Wonka's final line to Charlie, "Don't forget what happened to the man who suddenly got everything he always wanted. He lived happily ever after." So that is the writing. As for some other little things, so I found some stuff on the title change. So different explanations have been given for the title change to Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory. In the United States during the 1960s, the term Mr. Charlie had been used as a pejorative expression in the African American community for a white man in power, historically plantation slave owners, and press reports claimed the change was due to pressure from black groups. During the same period, US soldiers in the Vietnam War used the diverse term Charlie for the Viet Cong, originating from the acronym VC using the call sign Victor Charlie. The studio publicity stated that the title was changed to put emphasis on the eccentric central character of Willy Wonka. However, Waltner said he changed the title to make the product placement for the Wonka bar have a closer association. Stewart confirmed the matter was brought to his attention by some African American actors, and he also claimed to have changed the title, saying, "If people say, 'I saw Willy Wonka,' people would know what they were talking about. If they say, 'I saw Charlie,' it doesn't mean anything." The book also in the midst of a controversy when the film was announced. Protest groups, including the NAACP, or the National Association for the Advancement of Coloured People, had taken issue with the original Oompa Loompas depicted as African pygmies and compared them to slavery. Stewart addressed the concerns for the film and suggested making them the distinctive green and orange characters. As for costume, Gene Wilder wanted specific changes to Wonka's costume, including what type of trousers the character should wear, the colour and the cut of his jacket, and the placement of pockets. Wilder also requested making Wonka's hair smaller, saying that the hat is terrific, but making it 2 inches shorter would make it more special. As for casting, before Wilder was officially cast as Willy Wonka, producers considered many other actors. All 6 members of Monty Python, which is Graham Chapman, John Cleese, Eric Idle, Telly Gilliam, and Terry Jones and Michael Palin, expressed interest in playing Wonka, but at the time they were deemed not big enough names for an international audience. Spike Milligan was Roald Dahl's original choice. Peter Sellers was reportedly begged Roald Dahl for the role. Joel Grey was the front runner for the part, but Stewart decided he was not physically imposing enough as the actor's height was 5'5". The producers learned that Fred Astaire wanted the part, but the 72-year-old may have considered himself too old. Actors were auditioned for the role of Willy Wonka in the suite at the Plaza Hotel in New York, and by the end of the week, Wilder had walked in. It was then Stewart and producer Waltner realised that they could stop looking. Waltner remarked, "The role fit him tighter than one of Jacqueline Cousteau's wetsuits." Stewart was captivated by Wilder's humour in his eyes and said, "His infection was perfect. He had the sardonic, demonic edge that we're looking for." Waltner tried to suppress Stewart's eagerness for Wilder as he wanted to negotiate the salary. Regardless, Stewart ran out into the hall as Wilder was leaving and offered him the part of Wonka straight away. When Wilder was cast as Wonka, he accepted the role on one condition, saying, "When I make my first entrance, I'd like to come out of the door carrying a cane and then walk towards the crowd with a limp. After the crowd sees Willy Wonka is a cripple, they all whisper to themselves and then become deeply quiet. As I walk towards them, my cane sticks into one of the cobblestones I'm walking on and stand straight up. by itself, but I keep on walking until I realize that I no longer have my cane. I start to fall forward, and just before I hit the ground, I do a beautiful forward somersault and bounce back up to great applause. That's a quote by Gene Wilder. Stewart responded, "What do you want to do that for?" Wilder answered, "From that time on, no one will know if I'm lying or telling the truth." Wilder was adamant that he would decline the role otherwise. And of course, that scene is in the movie, and it's one of the best scenes, because it's true. When you first see Wonka and you see that he's limping, you're like, "Oh, this is not the whole spectacle of like this grand, imposing character is a bit sort of, oh, that's not what I was expecting, some sort of old man." But then when he does his somersault and he's smiling, he's a huzzah sort of thing. He's like a magician. Like you don't know, and from that stage on, you don't know if he's mad, if he's crazy. Why did he do that? Why did he not do that? Is he or is he not? Is he putting an act on? Like, again, the whole idea of it, you can't trust him. He's the magician. You don't know if he's trying to pull the wool over your eyes or whatever that. So, it's very, very well done. Jean Stapleton turned down the role of Miss TV. Jim Backus was considered for the role of Sam Beauregard. Sammy Davis Jr. wanted to play Bill, the owner of Bill's Candy Shop, but Stewart did not like the idea because he felt that the presence of a big star in the candy store scene would break the reality. However, Davis turned Bill's signature song, The Candyman, into a big hit. Anthony Newley also wanted to play Bill, but Stewart also dissuaded him for the same reason. 10 actors of short stature were the Oompa Loompas, including 1 woman and 9 men, and were cast internationally from France, Germany, Malta, Persia, which is now Iran, Turkey, and the United Kingdom. They were portrayed by Ruby Ballsteller, George Claydon, Malcolm Dixon, Rusty Golfi, Ismed Hassan, Norman McGlenn, Anglio Muscat, Pepe Pew, Marcus Powell, and Albert Wilkinson. The child actors who were auditioned from hundreds, Julie Dawn Cole, Dennis Nicholson, Peter Ostrom, and Paris Themin, all had acting experience from drama school, theatre, television, or commercials. Michael Bonner had the primary attribute of being rounded and was discovered in Germany when Stewart was location scouting. Stewart asked him to imagine being stuck in a tube and then squeezed him like a roll of putty. As for filming, so principal photography commenced on August the 31st, 1970 and ended on November the 19th, 1970. After location scouting in Europe, including the Guinness Brewery in Ireland and real-life chocolate factory in Spain, producer and designer Harper Golf decided to house the factory sets and the massive chocolate room at Bavaria Studios. It was also significantly cheaper than filming in the United States, as it is nowadays, to be honest. And the primary shooting locations in Munich and Bavaria, West Germany, were conclusive to the desired atmosphere for Wonka's factory. Stewart also liked the ambiguity and unfamiliarity of the location. And it is, to be honest, when I was young, I always wondered as to where that is and why it doesn't look like any part of England that I knew of. So it all felt very mysterious, very different to me, which again, it works for the whole idea of the movie. As for the location, so external shots of the factory were filmed at the gasworks at, again, this is a German word, so I do apologize, Stadtwerke in Munich, in Emi Nocia Stabi. Again, I don't know if I pronounced that right. The entrance and side buildings still exist as of 2021. The exterior of Charlie Bucket's house, a set constructed solely for the film, was filmed at Quinnenstelby in Munich. Charlie's School was filmed at, again, another hard word, Kaffenschleich, Parliament, St. Sylvester, Birgersterne Stabi in Munich. Again, I'm butchering these names. I do apologize. Bill's Candy Shop was filmed in Lissenberg, Munich. The closing sequence in which the Wonkavator is flying above the factory is footage of the Nordligen in Bavaria, and the elevator rising shot showing that it shoots out the factory was from somewhere in Germany. I'm not even going to try and pronounce that word because I feel like I'm just going to butcher the language, but it's somewhere in Germany. Let's just say that. As for the production design, so the construction of the original inventing room was meant to be an industrial room with steel tubes. Stewart envisioned it differently as a wacky inventor's laboratory with Rube Goldberg-type mechanisms and unusual contraptions, and wanted it redesigned to be like Wonka's personality. Goff sent his construction crew into Munich searching junkyards, bakeries, and car dealers for discarded machinery, tin funnels, and other raw materials. This included building Wonka's three-course gun machine, which was originally a solid-state device, but Stewart requested an appliance whose operators had a visual experience for the audience. Stewart also instructed Goff to have all the props, furniture, and fittings, excluding the light bulbs, in Wonka's original office to be cut in half to reflect the character's eccentricity. Stewart stated, "I couldn't face the thought of ending the journey through this fabulous factory in an ordinarily looking office. About a third of the props in the chocolate room set were editable. Veruca's Salt had a chocolate watermelon. Mike TV had gumballs from a tree. Violet Beauregard's three-course gum was actually a toffee-based candy, and marzipan was freely available on set." That doesn't sound good when you've got loads of kids running around. You're going to have them high off candy, proper sugar rush. But, it is what it is. Anyway, also, there was giant mushrooms filled with whipped cream, and the trees had edible leaves. To be honest, if I was on that set, it'd be really difficult, because I've got a bit of a sweet tooth. It'd be really difficult not to be like, okay, somebody called action, the camera's not pointing this direction, I'm just going to have some gummy bears off that tree. I'd be eating them. I couldn't help myself. The inedible items included giant gummy bears. Oh, that's a shame. That were plastic. The ears were edible, however. The flavoured wrapping paper was not actually flavoured, and Wonka's flower cups was made of wax, which Wilder would chew on camera and spit out after each take. Oh, that's a shame. Generally, I just thought they were candy. I didn't realise they were wax. Because he's an actor, obviously, but he plays it so well. Like if I had chewed off any wax, you couldn't help not make a face up, sort of face. So he played off so well that I did not know that. According to Paris Semin, who played Mike TV, the river was made of water with food colouring. At one point, they poured some cocoa powder into it to try to thicken it, but it didn't really work. When asked what the river was made of, Michael Bonaire, who played Augustus Gloop, answered, "It was very dirty, stinking water. A combination of salt, conditioner, and some chemicals eventually removed the stink problem, but it remained cold, dirty water." In the scene at Mr. Salt's peanut factory, where thousands of Wonka bars were being unwrapped to find a golden ticket, the bars were actually made of wood, which was a cheaper solution than wrapping thousands of bars of real chocolate. Yeah, no, it would have been. As performances. So the performances, Stewart used a recurring tactic in a few scenes. When Wonka makes his entrance at the factory gates, nobody was aware of Wilder's approach as he limped, then somersaulted. The action was of real surprise. The director gave explicit instructions not to allow the children actors to see the chocolate room set until the day of the shoot, as he wanted their reactions to be genuine. The exception was Julie Dawn Cole, as Golf gave her a sneak preview. Also, the actors were not warned about the tunnel boat ride scene. Oh God, that makes sense. Similarly, when Wilder rehearsed the Wonka office scene with Peter Osmond as Charlie and Jack Alberson as Grandpa Joe, it was in a much calmer tone. When filming started, he increasingly became angry. When he shouted, "So you get nothing!" It was so that the reactions would be authentic. And they were. Like, generally, I always believed that the little boy was going to cry. Because I would. You do your rehearsals and all of a sudden you're doing it this way and he's getting angry at you. You're like, have I done something wrong? You wouldn't have that look at the director of like, is it okay? But again, they're both professionals. And it's hard to believe that the young boy that played Charlie was so talented. But this was the only movie he did. And after that, he went to veterinary school and now he's a vet in America somewhere. And that's the life that he wants to live. So fair play to him. But you just think he was so talented. What more could he have done? But we will never know. Anyway, other issues. So Stewart had issues with the large size of the chocolate room set with difficulties lighting the background. Cole's performance of I Want It Now as Veruca's Salt required 36 takes and was filmed on her 13th birthday. Director, choreographer Bob Fosse came in every afternoon to complain because the filming was overrunning towards the end and stopping him from shooting Cabaret in 1972 on the same stage. And then finally, retrospectives, right? So this bit's quite interesting. And so I wanted to add it in. So in addition to the main scenes set in town and at the factory, several comic interludes were also shot. Stewart lamented in his book, Pure Imagination, The Making of Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory, that his favourite scene was cut after poor test screenings. In the scene, which took a lot of preparation and money to film, an English explorer climbs to a holy mountain to ask a guru the meaning of life. The guru requests a Wonka bar. Finding no golden ticket, he says, life is a disappointment. I love that. I would see now that would have been a sort of comedy skit I would have appreciated because that's funny. I like that. Stewart loved the scene, but few laughed. Well, obviously they have got no bone in their body that's funny because that was hilarious. Or maybe it's just me, but I find it funny. Anyway, he invited a psychologist, friend to a preview where the audience reaction was again muted. The psychiatrist told him, "You don't understand, Mel. For a great many people, life is a disappointment." Yeah, he's not wrong. When interviewed for the 30th anniversary special edition in 2001, Walder stated that he enjoyed working with most of the child actors, but said that he and the film crew had some problems with Temin, who basically played Mike TV. Walder recalled, he was a little brat. He then addressed Temin directly. Now, if you're watching this, you know that I love you now, but you were a troublemaker then. An example of Fremen's misbehaviour was releasing bees from a beehive on Wonka's three-course gum machine. As life mirrored one of the morals of the movie, Stewart remembers one of the bees stung him. So yeah, that is all I've got for the book. And as I said, it was a lot to go into. But this is, a very beloved movie. So I'm not surprised. But I've spoke already long enough. I've had a lot of fun talking about the production, but it's time to go off and watch the movie. So I'm going to go off and watch Willy Wonka. Please join me. Please stick around. Go and check out this movie as well. Again, it's Easter. Go watch it. Go give it a listen. I'm sure it's probably on TV. Or if it's not, it's most likely on streaming somewhere. I believe it's on Now TV. So go give it a watch. Join me as I watch it, and then we'll come back. And as always, we'll talk about first impressions, talk about the story, production, overall thoughts, bit of trivia, and then we'll wrap it up nicely. So I'll see you all in a second. And welcome back, everyone. So I've now finished watching Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory. And honestly, it's still a masterpiece, as I knew it would be. This is a movie that in my family, we watch every single year, not just for Easter. We watch it all the time because my mum loves it. It is the movie that she grew up with. It's her Willy Wonka, it's her Charlie, it's her Chocolate Factory. The Johnny Depp one was the one that I grew up with, even though I'd watched the Gene Wilder one originally before that one. It's still a very much sort of part of my childhood, watching Johnny Depp and seeing the Tim Burton version of that movie. That's why it means so much to me. And actually, I brought my mum into the experience with me, because usually when I'm looking into a movie or something like that, when I'm reviewing something, I'm on my own. And this is one of them experiences where I was like, look, Mum, it's just me and you. You finished work, you've had a cup of tea, I've made some cheese on toast. Let's sit down and watch, Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory together. And it was lovely. And we was making jokes and I was making comments, and we sung Cheer Up Charlie together, and we sung all the different sort of songs, come with me and you'll be in a world of pure imagination. Take a look and you'll see into your imagination. You can't help not, just imbue Gene Wilder and just sort of start singing. There is no life I know to compare to your imagination. Like, you just can't help just start singing, especially when you watch this movie, like Cheer Up Charlie. Like, so I love it. I have a lot of sort of fond memories of it, and it was just lovely watching it from my mom. You know, I made her laugh. There's a moment in this movie, and this is a true story, by the way. This is not me trying to make a joke. This is a genuinely true story. One that I thought I told my mom before, but I obviously hadn't because she didn't believe me and she burst out laughing. There's the moment when Mike TV finds a golden ticket, and he's sitting there, and he's watching the TV, watching the Western, and the people, the reporters, are trying to talk to him, and he pulls out a sort of toy Colt 45, bam, 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 and he goes, "Damn, jammed, you know, Colt 45. I want a real one, but my dad won't let me." And his dad looks at him, proper Texas sort of dad, puts down the paper and goes, "Not till you're 12, son." And I looked over at my mum and said, "Look, when I was little, I genuinely believed at 12 I would have got a gun." And she laughed at me. She goes, "Shut up." And I was like, "No, seriously. Like when I was little, I was that young and naive." Again, we're talking like 3, 4, 5. You know what I mean? We're talking young, okay? I genuinely believed, oh, everybody gets a gun at 12. I didn't realize until that is true if you live in America or you live in like Texas, places like that. You know, maybe. But here in the UK, no. But you know, at a young age, I was like, oh, I'm going to get a gun at 12. You know, yay. You know, so, you know, add proper nostalgia, little bits like that with my mom, where I was like, oh, God, I love this film. I really do. And like we made the joke, and we spoke about the weirdness of it, how strange this movie is. And I even made the comment of like, people say how weird the Tim Burton one is, but you watch this one and you're actually like, no, this is the truly weird. But I love it. Like, I love the bit where you got the guy in the psychiatrist, and he's sitting. He goes, he goes line. He goes, I was visited by the Archangel David, and he told me this and that. And the psychiatrist sitting there, very sort of professional, sitting there going, "Oh, I've told you this before. Dreams and visions are just the delusions of a madman. You know, they're not real." And he goes, "Well, I had this one dream where this angel came down and he told me where the location of the golden tickets were going to be." And the guy leans forward and goes, "What did he say?" And he goes, "Well, it doesn't matter. You told me that it was all a vision or a dream." And he's like, "Shut up and tell me where the golden ticket is." You know? And yeah, it's strange. And these little comedy skits, granted, are they needed? No. But do I want and appreciate them? Yes. Are they very sort of British and very sort of for the style of the time during the 70s cinema? Yes. You know, I think that's why we love it so much, is that it's so weird and wild and different that you don't realize actually how long it takes to actually get to the chocolate factory. Actually, you know, you don't see Wonka till the middle half of the movie. The first half is literally just Charlie, these random skits. His horrible teacher, who is a douche. His teacher's horrible. You know, he's the type of teacher where, you know, he calls up Charlie and he asks him a question, and Charlie goes, "I don't know, sir." He goes, "Of course you don't know, because if you do know, you'd be smarter than me, and that'd be awfully rude." And I'm sitting there like, you asked me, if that was me, like, you asked me the question. You know, he's the type of teacher who's like, are you sure he's meant to be teaching? Because he looks like a loon. You know what I mean? And then they pour the stuff and it blows up, and he's so proud of it. And he goes, "Did we do something wrong?" He goes, "No, it's for very big warts." And you know, it's so random and weird, but so wonderful. But yeah, like, as I knew, first impressions going in, I was going to love it. I was going to enjoy it. You're singing along. It is strange. But I also love the fact of, as it said in the introduction about when he was looking at the sort of where to set the movie. I remember watching this movie when I was very, very little, and seeing the school, seeing the streets, seeing the cars, seeing the signs, and just feel sort of alien. You know what I mean? It feels different, and because it's not what I grew up with. Like, grew up in the UK. In like in the late 90s, early 2000s, you know, it didn't look like that. The cars weren't like that. You know, the houses weren't like that. Nothing looked like that. So to me, it was very alien. I didn't know that was a place in Germany. You know, that was a different place. So it added to the mysterious of it. But it made sense as well, where you'd have a chocolate factory. You'd have a chocolate factory in one place in the world where, you know, they take really big pride in doing chocolate and have a lot of chocolate factories. You know, so it makes sense for the time frame, for the setting, as well as there's whole mysteriousness about it. So going into it and seeing that, I was like, oh, actually, you know, I do really appreciate that. You know, there are a few things as well, like that bothers me, that every time I watch this movie, how I sit there and think the Candyman, the guy that owns the store, he is the biggest, like, meanest sort of person ever, because Like, he's giving all the other kids free candy. He's singing songs, throwing candy out, giving them lollipops, giving them these weird bits of like piece of paper with sticky sweets on and whatever, for throwing out just willy-nilly, just throwing money out, basically. As soon as Charlie comes in asking for stuff, he's like, pay me. And I'm sitting there thinking, Charlie's sitting out the window. He goes to school. Now, granted, he is meant to be the poor kid. He's meant to be the weird kid. He's meant to be the kid that nobody likes. But I'm sure that he talks to some of the kids. I'm sure he's old enough where he's got some friends or some kids that he knows, right? All the other kids are leaving school and going straight to the sweet shop. The guy's singing songs and singing Candyman Can, and giving out chocolate and all that for free. If I was Charlie, I'll be honest, even if I didn't know any of the kids, I would sneak in and I'd be picking sweets. Like, if you're poor and you got nothing, I'd be picking sweets up off the floor. I'd be catching them in the air. I'd be like, he's not looking. He's giving out free lollipops. I'm taking a few lollipops. I'm leaving with something. You know what I mean? Like, I'm not going to stand in the mirror and be like, oh, woe's me. I'm like, no, I know I've got a paper round, but that can wait for a second. I'm already late as it is. Might as well, grab some sweets off the floor, and like, they're all in wrappers, and because he ain't paying attention, he's too busy singing. And actually, one of the mistakes that I love, it gets me every time. I know it sounds horrible to say, but I catch it every time, and it makes me giggle. There's a mistake. So there's a moment where the guy, he's behind the counter, he's singing, and it's one of them old-fashioned sort of counters where it comes up in an arc, and then you can walk through and you put it back down, and it goes back to be like being a table or a counter. There's this one little girl, she must have been standing too close, and the guy's not paying attention, he's too busy singing, so he just whacks up and like thumps that on her chin, right? Just whacks one on the cheek, wallops, and you can see a little girl, she doesn't react, fair play to her, obviously whaps her head just bops back. He walks out, and you see the little girl, and instead of going around all the other kids, she quickly goes for the door on the far end. Obviously there must be somebody in there, and bless her, she must have been crying her eyes out, because it looked like it was a hell of, like, that's hard wood, right? He chinned her, like literally poof, and she looked, she could have bit a tongue or anything like that, if she wasn't because she wasn't paying attention, and neither was he. But that makes me laugh every time. But yeah, he's chinning little girls, and like, he's giving free candy out. If I was Charlie, I'd be like, look, he's not paying attention. I'm like, there's kids behind the counter. I'm not saying I'm going to steal the money, but I'm stealing chocolate bars and scumdiddlyumptious bars and normal Wonka bars off. He's not paying attention. And then leave. He's not going to notice, because he's been giving out for free anyway, so he's not going to add up at the end of the day. He goes, oh, some gobstoppers, a couple of lollipops. Oh, yeah, just that whole area, void that. That was when I had my sing-along, my daily sing-along with the local children, like the child catcher. What a freak. And then, Charlie Bucket, who I've never met before, came in and stole this, or I'm going to get those kids instead of the ones I get for free. You know what I mean? He's not going to count it. I'm looking too deep into it, but you know what I mean? It's ludicrous. It's absolutely silly. And again, the whole thing with Grandpa Joe, that gets me as well. Like, that was a lot of comedy with my mom, because like, I'm not the first one to say it, the Doom generation, those ladies have said it enough, but it goes without saying, Grandpa Joe is one of the biggest villains in the whole story, because his family are starving, and it's not just him, it's the other grandparents as well, admittedly, but they're just sitting in bed. And like, you've got Grandpa Joe going, where's Charlie? Should be back by now. And his mom's like, oh, he's probably finishing off his paper round. And he goes, a young boy shouldn't be doing that. A young boy should be in school, should be at home, And then his mom basically goes, well, he's providing. And he goes, well, and then she goes, well, Dad, if you got out of that bed, you better get a job. And, and then he looks and he goes, well, I would do if the floor wasn't so cold. And I'm like, stop lying, stop it. And then he goes, I love the line when he basically says, he goes, I'm giving up tobacco, because like Charlie gives him some money, and his daughter's like, come on, Dad, it's only one pipe a day. And then when he goes, yeah, but when a loaf of bread looks that good, I have no right smoking tobacco. And I love that line, and it's a line that we quote a lot in the house, actually. But I love that line. But at the same stage, it's that fact of, yeah, but you would have more than cabbage soup and a loaf of bread if you would get up and go to work. He doesn't look that old, to be honest. Like, he probably still could, you know what I mean? And like, it even goes to show that the guy that runs the post stand, who Charlie works for, knows Grandpa Joe, looks about the same age, which means they probably went to school with each other. So I made the joke to my mom saying, like, what's the betting? Obviously this is headcanon, this is obviously not in the film, but in moments like Charlie's boss says to him, he goes, Grandpa Joe, is he still in bed? I remember when he was younger, he used to be all round, but he's always been lazy, or something like that. an Addy sort of joke. But yeah, like it's one of those where like he sits in bed and he's like, move, do something. And when he finally gets up out of bed, so I said to my mum, was like, what you don't see is when the cameras pan, there's a knock at the door from Universal Credit saying, oh, you were said that you couldn't walk, that you couldn't do work because you were bedbound, but I saw you on national TV and you was at the gates, you ran in and out. I saw you moving, all those benefits, I want them back, please. You know what I mean? That's if they did benefits back in the 70s. They probably did, but I don't know how it works now. But it's one of those where you're like, oh, bloody hell, Grandpa Joe, he is the worst. He really, really is. One of my favourite parts as well is when Charlie comes in, he's obviously making a joke, and he goes, "Oh, what's for dinner?" He goes, "Cabbage soup, Charlie." And Uncle Joe's like, "It's yours too. You're having it too." And he goes, "Oh, I don't want cabbage water. It's not enough." And the other granddad on the other side like launches forwards, and I'm thinking to myself, if he wasn't in that bed, he would launch one and slap Charlie, to be honest. Would have been like, what did you say? You ungrateful little swine, sort of thing. I'm just being silly. But it just goes to show this movie is strange. It is weird. It is wonderful. There are so many parts you can watch about it. You're like, that doesn't make sense. That doesn't make sense. But the reason why you don't care and the reason why, it's not really a big deal is because it is a good movie. So you don't mind these little quirky things. You don't mind the weirdness. But the reason that I wanted to start with that is just to go to show the movie is very weird and strange. But it's wonderful as well. And that's why I love the Tim Burton one, is because that movie is very strange and wonderful and different. But I love it because it is very strange, unusual, and wonderful, because Willy Wonka, the world of Roald Dahl, if you read any of his books, they are weird and wonderful and strange, a bit creepy, a bit scary at times. But they're so full of imagination that to kind of translate that onto screen, you have to also do weird, wonderful, and strange. You know what I mean? So it makes sense for the source material and for the material that you see on screen. I haven't talked about sort of like the Chocolate Factory, so I'll talk about the Chocolate Factory. So obviously, find the golden tickets. We know all this really about the golden tickets. You have the different sort of kids, and you get to there and you meet Wonka. Now, obviously, I love the part, and I already knew the trivia, but I love the part where he comes in and he's hobbling, and then he does his somersault, and then from there, you don't know if he's telling the truth or not. So I took that in mind. I was like, okay, if that's what Gene Wilder wanted to do, if that was his idea and his concept, I'm going to go with that. I'm going to go with that in my mind. So I'm going to watch Wonka. I'm going to watch how he acts, how he moves, stuff like that. And I did. And from then, straight away, was like, I'm listening to all the things he said. I'm listening to the quotes. I'm listening to the lines of text and scripture from quotes from books and other sort of literary pieces that he's quoting. And I'm listening to it. And he is a madman. But what I love about Gene Wilder, he was so good at doing manic and just being crazy, but being still. He was so, like, he just had a way of playing characters. He had a way of doing mania, of doing strangeness or weirdness, kookiness, of doing certain characters where, like, he could be still one moment, then he could be erratic. And, like, if you ever watch The Producers, how he goes from being a bubbling wreck to being a very confident sort of person by the end of the movie. He's like, I'm in pain and I'm wet. And then the guys hit me, goes, no, don't hit me again, don't hit me again. That'll only make me worse, sort of thing. And how he's able to do the manicness. But also, and he's like, go over there. This is from The Producers, by the way. He goes, go over there. And the guy goes over there. And he starts to calm down. And then, but you actually genuinely believe he's actually manic and crazy. And again, if you watch Frankenstein as well by Mel Brooks, same thing in there, where like he tries to keep his cool, but slowly but surely the movie goes on, he goes more and more crazy, and he gets more into being Dr. Frankenstein and stuff like that. And he's just, I miss him dearly. One of my favorite movies he's in is what's it called now? See No Evil, Hear No Evil with Richard Pryor. One of my favorite movies with him in. He's brilliant in it. He's absolutely fantastic. But yeah, Gene Wilder is so good, and when he just goes crazy as well, and like he's foreshadowing to the kids when you realize and you look into what he's saying, or he's saying to like Mr. Soul, some of the things he says when he's talking about Veruca and stuff like that, he's foreshadowing. The quotes are basically like, careful what you wish for, or I'm paraphrasing, but that idea of don't look a gift horse in the mouth. People that live in glass houses shouldn't throw stones. These sort of things, very ironic. These sort of things were people say, "Oh, this person's really like Salt." Mr. Salt will say something under the lines of people are sort of greedy or people get what they want, blah 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 blah, and like Wonka will lead in and like he will say a quote. And the guy will sit there a bit confused, but when you realize what he's saying, he's basically saying of like, look, have you seen your daughter? You know, she is the product of you. And I was saying to my mom as well, you know, you look at these kids and you think, why are these kids so dastardly? Why are they so ghastly? Why are they so horrible? And then you look at the parents and you go, that makes sense. When you've got like, for example, Violet Beauregard, you know, Violet, you look at her dad, and her dad is a quick salesman. You know, he's like, everything's got to be the best, everything's got to be great, everything's got to be quick. So, you know, she's brought up with that. She wants to be the champion. Everything's got to be great. It's going to be quick. She can do what she wants, no problem whatsoever. Because like her dad's sort of like that sort of person her dad is. When you see Veruca Salt, and Veruca Salt, like she is a spoiled child, is because her dad is Princess. Her dad has brought her up to be like that. You know, Mike TV. You know, he's a young, brash sort of child because, again, his parents have let him watch TV. They haven't actually brought up their child. They've let the TV be the nanny. And so because of that, he has no responsibility. He doesn't know right from wrong because he hasn't been taught that. The TV doesn't teach right from wrong. Well, depends on what you watch. But he's watching Westerns and stuff like that. You know what I mean? So he's not being brought up properly by his parents, sort of thing. Whereas you have... and like, you know, Augustus Gloop, he is gluttonous. You know, his mom even says he loves his food. We encourage it, sort of thing. So it makes sense why he would be greedy because he's never been told, no, you can't have that. You can't have the extra sausage. You can't have that chocolate bar. You can't have this and that. You know, so when he's eating all the stuff and then all of a sudden he starts just drinking the river of chocolate, it makes sense why he falls in because he's gluttonous. He's too greedy. You know, it's like if you watch Indiana Jones with the Holy Grail, and Indiana Jones has got, I think, Ursula by the hand, or Elsa, and she's leaning over. She goes, "I can reach it, India. I can reach it." And he's like, "Look, it's not worth it." And he realized it himself already because he tried to reach it, but he couldn't. And then his dad saved him, and he realized like it's not worth it. You know, and it's the same thing of like realize what is worth it or not, and he didn't, and he hasn't got that. So he just kept going until he falls in, and they say, you know, he's being sucked up the pipe and he's off. He's gone. You know, another child bites the dust. You know, so you look at the parents, you look at the way the parents are, and it's the same for the 2000s movie as well. You look at the parents and the way they are, and, you know, you can see that reflection between that. But going back to sort of Wonka and, you know, the bit where they're on the boat and it's crazy and you can see all these different things. It's a real sort of like technical sort of madhouse sort of thing, and then he starts singing "Here's the angels must be rowing," and I one thing I noticed, I love Mr. Salt in when in the factory because he has so many quippy one-liners that if you're not paying attention you'll miss them, but there's so many funny bits like when Wonka starts singing, you can hear him in the background goes, "Oh, here we go, he's singing," sort of like, and like I've heard people talk like whenever, you know, you go to the pub and you see your local bloke and something weird happens and you hear that guy in the background goes, "Oh my God, he started singing," or, you know, or something like that. You know, we've all know somebody like that. So when you listen, I was giggling to myself, and he's going on like, "There's a rowing," you know, he's got the eyes of like, "Get me off this, he's insane, he's gone nuts." You know, and then when he starts speaking like French and German, like you got, I don't think I can take any more of this. You know, he's really wigging out. And to be honest, I'm surprised the guy hasn't had a heart attack already. The way his daughter treats him, well, again, it's his own fault because again, the way he's brought her up. But if he hadn't had a heart attack yet, and he hasn't had a heart attack in the factory, I'm sure when he leaves the factory, he won't be long for have a heart attack because I feel like if Veruca hasn't learned a lesson, she will put him in an early grave. To tell you the truth. But yeah, all the kids are meant to be ghastly in this. I do love Charlie in this movie as well. He's played really, really well by the young lad. And what I like about this film compared to the Tim Burton one, in the Tim Burton one, you get to spend time with Charlie, but it's really the beginning of that movie is to set up the mystery, the intrigue of Wonka, of who is he, what, you know, why did he close down the factory? you have Grandpa Joe telling the story of Prince Pondicherry about how he wanted him to build a palace full of chocolate and stuff like that, and how he had to close down, and how Grandpa used to work for him. It's to set up that whole mysterious of it. So when you eventually meet Willy Wonka, and he's not what you expect, kind of like they do in this movie, it's that thing of like, okay, I'm not sure. So you know what I mean? Um, Whereas with this movie, you spend more time with Charlie. You get to see more of him, being like, you actually see him being poor. You see the fact of when he's in school and the kids all rushing outside, and the teacher goes, "What's going on, Jenkins," or whatever, and he goes, "Oh, Wonka's giving out 5 chocolate bars, 5 tickets to winners," and he goes, "How do you find him?" He goes, "It's in chocolate. We got to buy a Wonka bar to find one." And the guy goes, "Class dismissed," and the teacher runs out, and all the kids are running, and everybody's gone, and then the camera just slowly pans, and then you realize, oh, Charlie, he's still there. He's not running. He's not rushing because he doesn't have the money. He's not going to rush because he can't afford it. He can't do it, you know. And you do feel for him. There are many moments like that where like they're watching on the TV and you can see, you're just seeing his face slowly sort of get slump and get lower and lower, and the way he carries himself as well. As more of the tickets are being found, Grandpa Joe is trying his best, buys him, or say he buys him, more than likely gave the money for tobacco to his daughter, and she went out and got it. And then it was a surprise for him and Charlie. He's trying to encourage him. His family's trying to encourage him. But again, it's that thing of like, look, they realize, they're adults, they realize their situation. Charlie's still young. He knows his situation, but he is still young. He's still innocent. He's still, in a way, he's allowed to dream. And that's why Grandpa Joe says, when they find out that the last ticket is gone, they all say, like, shall we tell Charlie? And Grandpa Joe's like, no, let him sleep. Let him have one more dream, So you do feel for Charlie in this movie. And like when you have the whole bit with like, cheer up, Charlie, when he goes to talk to his mom, and he goes, I just thought you'd want to know that all the tickets are gone. And his mom's trying to say to him, and she's trying to parent, she's trying to talk to him as an adult, or try to at least talk to him honestly about, look, Charlie, I think she used 5 billion people, which probably in the 70s was probably true. But she's like, there's 5 billion people in the world. Each one of them is trying to find the Wonka bar. There's only 5 in the world, and it's mostly down to the people that can afford to buy as many chocolate bars are the ones that can do it. But Charlie's like, but I want it more. I deserve it more. And you feel for him, you do. And I somewhat get him, because I remember when like the 2005 movie came out, Nestle partnered with obviously partnered with the marketing for the movie, and they did a thing of like, we have special Wonka bars that were released, and if you find a special Wonka bar that comes with a golden ticket, you'll win loads of merch from the movies. And I think a trip to I think it was a trip to Warner Bros. Universal, and there was I think you win loads of chocolate. Like basically there was a big prize, and there's only so many. And I remember buying loads of these chocolate bars, and the chocolate bars were actually designed to look like the ones in the movie. And I remember I bought loads of them, and they were delicious. Like some of the best chocolate I've ever tasted, to be honest. They were truly, truly lovely. Again, I never did it, but I still went out and went on the hunt for one. And it was the same when I think I've told the story before, when what was it? The Simpsons movie. The Simpsons movie came out, and again, Nestle partnered with The Simpsons. And in the UK, we've got, obviously, as they do in most countries, so you have Kit Kats. I don't know if they do them in other countries, but in the UK, we have a thing called a Kit Kat Chunky, which is basically one giant Kit Kat, and it's a big chunky. It's gorgeous, okay, right? But what they were doing was the fact of, I remember the wrapper clear as day. It had a picture of Homer Simpson on it, and it basically said, if you find a yellow Kit Kat Chunky, you will win, again, loads of Simpsons goodies. You win the copy of the movie, and all the different sort of standard giveaway sort of prizes. And I went crazy. Like, I love Kit Kats anyway. And I remember every time we went to the shop, or we went to the petrol station or whatever, I always said, Dad was like, what do you want? I was like, Kit Kat Chunky, make sure it's the one with Simpsons on it. Again, I never found it, but it was that hunt. So I completely understand where Charlie's getting from. It's like, as a young child, I felt the same. I deserved it. I wanted it. I was a big fan of The Simpsons. I was a big fan of China Chocolate Factory. I love Roald Dahl. I want to win it. I want to be Charlie. I want to do it. And I never did. And to be honest, I've always asked the question, when you get these big things on like promotional packs and stuff like that, does anybody ever win them? because I remember a documentary that was on Netflix a couple of years ago about the Pepsi one, where like you had these Pepsi caps, and if you collected so many codes off these Pepsi caps, you could win a Harrier fighter jet. And some kid eventually managed to do it. Pepsi obviously thinking nobody could do it, but the kid managed to do it, and they didn't honor it. And it made me wonder, like, did anybody ever win these grand prizes? When you have like the McDonald's Monopoly, does anybody win the car? Or the holiday, or all the money? Because you never hear anybody do it. Like if I did, I'd be all over TikTok and all over the news. I would scream it to the world, but you never hear anybody do it. So it's one of these things of like, I know we're in the real world now. We're not talking about sort of movies and books, but it's one of those where you look at these prizes and like, I get it. I myself was hunting for him. So I do feel for Charlie, and I could relate to him. But yeah, like this film, I understand why people love it. I understand why people enjoy it. And as I watched it, my mum said she loved it. She was on the phone to my aunt as the movie was starting, and she was telling her about what she was doing this morning. And she basically said, I'm watching Charlie and Chocolate Factory. And my aunt went, oh, the Johnny Depp one. She go, oh, no, I don't like that one. The one with Gene Wilder. And I heard my aunt go, oh, the good one. She's like, yeah, the good one. So I know my mum loves it, and she was quoting this movie, and I know how much she doesn't like that one, and I understand why people don't like it. And I think what it comes down to, again, and it's the same point I made in the 2005 when I was talking about that version of Charlie and Chocolate Factory, the Tim Burton one. The same point then is still clear now. I think whatever one you grew up with and you watch first, that's your Wonka, as if like that's your Bond or that's your Doctor. You know what I mean? That is your Wonka. That's who it's going to be, and that's who it'll always be. And even though that I grew up and we had it on video, and I remember watching Chocolate Factory on video, and Mum watched it all the time, and I watched that first before I watched the Tim Burton one. I feel like just because I was of that age, of that time, and I was the right sort of demographic for the movie, and because I love Tim Burton, I loved a lot of his movies, I still do now. That's why it appeals to me so much, and that's why I love it. And again, it comes back to the thing of Wonka, the new one with Timothée Chalamet. I watch it and I see what they're trying to do. I see what the movie's trying to be, and I could see how young kids would watch this and go, "That's my Wonka," or "That's my favorite version." Or why people would watch it and say that's the best, as I can understand why I say that about the Tim Burton one. But I still watch Wonka and I still go, I'm not sure. I'm still on the fence. I'm still on that side of like, oh, I get it, but like, is it for me? Not really. But do I like certain bits of it? Yes. Do I like certain parts where it goes? Yes. Would I like to see a sequel? Yes, I would, generally, to be honest. I'd like to see where that version of Wonka goes. And will they ever do it? I don't know. Timothée Chalamet is a very busy man at the moment. He's making the third Doom movie at the moment, or at least I think they've finished doing it anyway. So he's a very busy talent at the moment. But would I want to see another Wonka movie? Yeah, I would do. But the point I'm trying to make is the fact of, I think it all just comes down to what one you watch first, what one rings truer to you. And that's what it is. So I feel like going online and saying, oh, this one's crap, that one's the best, I think that's not very fair. They're all good. They all have moments. There's things in this movie that I really like that I wish that the Tim Burton one did. And there's things I like about the Tim Burton one that I like that I wish this one did. So each one of them had have their things that work and things that make them. And again, it goes down to the fact that people say how strange and weird Jim Carrey would have been great as Wonka, but how weird Johnny Depp is, his version of Wonka. And I made the argument, and I said, well, it makes sense because he's a recluse. He's never been outside. Well, he has, but like he hasn't been outside for years. He has had no social contact. He talks to Oompa Loompas who don't actually speak English, so he's got no one to really communicate with apart from the Oompa Loompas. So we've got no one to really socialize with. Of course, he's going to be mad and crazy and strange. And it's the same with Gene Wilder. It's the fact of he's a bit of a trickster. He's a bit of a sort of neutral evil in a way, where he's a bit sort of, you don't know where, he's a bit dark. You don't know where he's going to be. He's crazy. He's strange. He makes weird comments. And it's down to the fact of, because again, he lives on his own. He has no one to talk to. So he doesn't know how to talk to adults. He doesn't know how to talk to children. Well, he's probably better talking to children than he does to adults, because he's got a very sort of childlike imagination. So he could probably empathize with the children as well. Well, specifically Charlie. The other kids, not so much, because they're very sort of ghastly children, and they still got young and have got imagination, but they're more so on the cusp of maturing adulthood because they're immature than somebody like Charlie, who is mature but is still very young, innocent, because he hasn't been ruined by the world yet, because he doesn't have a lot because of being poor. So he takes everything that he has. He's grateful for everything he has. He takes none of it for granted. So he's still young, pure, innocent child, full of imagination, full of hope, and not ghastly, really. So yeah, that's my overall impressions, really, is that I do really, really like Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory. And I understand why other people do as well. But I would still go and say, like, my favourite, if I had to choose between them, I will choose the Tim Burton one, because I like that one. I don't think it's better. I just like that one if I had to choose. But they both have their merits. And I think that's what it just comes down to at the end of the day. So whatever one you like, that's the one to watch, really, at the end of the day. I don't think I've changed anybody's opinion with this one. But yeah, I love it. It's wonderful. And it's a great Easter film to watch. Like I said, I watched this eating some cheese on toast, but as I'm watching it, I'm thinking, I should be eating some chocolate right now. And it reminded me, I have some Milka in the cupboard, so I might have some Milka chocolate after I finish recording this. I've got a double a Mars bar duo, so I might have half a Mars bar. Don't know yet. I might, but rest assured, either way, I'm going to have a lot of chocolate and get chocolatey wasted and enjoy myself. I've made sure it has got palm oil in, so I'm palm oil safe. Actually, it was funny as I was watching my mum. My mum, she nudged me, talking about palm oil. She nudged me as we were watching the beginning, because the beginning of the movie, it starts where you see candy being made. And obviously, as the movie goes on, you see the meat of bits of chocolate and stuff like that. And my mum nudged me, and she looked at me, she went, I bet there's no palm oil in that. I said, no, probably not. It's probably just, cocoa butter, cocoa solids, and milk and sugar. And that's probably it, to be honest. But yeah, it's the way it is today. But like I said, I'm not going to fully get into it. I'd just do your own research, but rest assured, it's not good for you. Try to limit as much as you take in, because it's really not good for your health at all. And it's not good for the environment or the orangutans or the rainforest or anything like that. So just do your own research, but trust me, it's not good for you. Anyway, that has been my thoughts on Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory. Again, by all means, please do let me know in the comments. Do you agree with me? Do you disagree with me? Do you like Wonka? Do you sit there and think Wonka's the better movie? Or do you think Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, the Tim Burton one with Johnny Depp, is the better movie? Or do you think this one's a better movie? Again, I'm interested to hear your thoughts in the comments down below. One thing I do want to mention is that this movie wasn't an overall success. It became a success later on, it became sort of a cult classic when it was released on home video and later on DVD. But when the movie first came out, I think the movie was made for 4 million, and I think it only made 5 million, or maybe it's the way around. I think it might be made for 3 million and made 4 million. Either way, it only made 1 million back. So really, it didn't make that much back, to be honest. So it would have been considered a bit of a failure when it came out. But it's caught a cult following thanks to the music, thanks to the cast, thanks to Gene Wilder, because people love Gene Wilder, especially when he passed as well. A lot of people were going back and rediscovering a lot of the Gene Wilder classics, a lot of the movies that most people don't talk about. Going back and check them out and just seeing of how good the man is and how good the man was, to be honest. So I just wanted to add that in. But yeah, let me know in the comments, like down on YouTube, down on Spotify. Put your comments down below. I want to hear them all. But before we end, I've got some trivia for you. So, Peter Ostrom and the other child actors have stayed close over the years and regularly attend fan conventions together. I think one of them has passed away. I believe it is the young girl who would have been, the older girl would have been, older woman, shall I say now, who played Violet Beauregard. I believe she's passed away, but I think the rest of them are still alive, as far as I'm aware. The reactions of the actors and actresses in some scenes are spontaneous. In the scene where Wonka limps out of his factory to greet the golden ticket winners, everyone's reaction is genuine. When the children first enter the chocolate room and see the candy garden, their reactions are genuine. When filming the tunnel scene, the actors' reactions to Wonka's singing was genuine. Peter Ostrom, Jack Olberston, and Dennis Nicholson were all terrified and had thought Gene Wilder had gone into a psychopathic meltdown. In the scene where Wonka is screaming at Charlie and Grandpa Joe, Ostrom and Alberson's reactions are real. Wilder actually wanted to tell Ostrom beforehand, but director Mel Stewart advised strongly against it, so not to ruin the illusion of surprise. I've just remembered, actually, one of the scenes as well, which me being a bit of a germaphobe, thought was like, it's a nice idea, but it's incredibly disgusting, is lickable wallpaper. So like so Wonka invents it for basically for nurseries, but I'm sitting there thinking, yeah, but after the first few licks, I don't want to lick that wall because that wall's covered in germs. And if it's for kids with nurseries as well, kids have candles and snot all the time. I don't want, you know what I mean? Nah, go away. Like, I'll buy the paper, I'll lick it once or twice, and I ain't licking that paper again. Like, that's it. I've had my fill. Let the kids go at it, and I'm never touching that paper again. And what if you clean it? Can you clean it? You know what I mean? Because like this whole movie just feels like one big ruse. Like, because when he goes to the inventing room, when it's what I love about the inventing room, is that it's so hodgepodge. It doesn't look like, it looks like a madman's sort of, he's like in his shed, like a tinkerer's shed sort of thing, or like some guys working at the back of a junkyard. It's got bits and bobs here and everywhere, and you can see in their minds as they walk around. And I've always thought that that was a cover-up, that room was put together by Wonka to kind of throw the kids off, to make them, again, as he did with him doing his flip at the beginning. You never know if he's telling the truth or not. You never know where you stand with him. And that's my thoughts and feelings here with, like, the room is the fact of, is that room real? Or is that a room we put together so the kids look at it and go, oh, what is this? This is not the inventing room I was expecting. Because obviously you watch the Tim Burton one, you know, you've got, it's all futuristic and stuff like that. That looks like a chocolate factory madman sort of inventing room, where the inventing room in this one is very much the fact of, it all looks a bit weird. And then he starts putting shoes in, and it's a funny joke. He puts a shoe in, and he goes, what's that for? And he goes, gives it some kick, you know, or like he puts his hand in, he goes, oh, too hot. And he goes, oh no, too cold. And he puts a coat in, you know, and I love it. But it makes you wonder, like, is this all a joke? Is this all sort of a ruse? Because by the end of the movie, when the guy comes out and he goes, oh no, that's Slugworth. He goes, oh no, that's not Slugworth. He works for me. And then he kind of drops his guard down and becomes probably, I would say, his true self. So when he's in the when he's in the glass elevator and he's talking to Charlie, I'm sitting there thinking, was that all just a gimmick? Was that all just to fool the people into making bad decisions so that they can never fully trust or believe him, so he can fully understand? Like kind of Columbo, he plays dumb so that people show who they're who they really are. They put their guard down because, you know, they think he's dumb. And then you actually realise by the end of it, he's actually really smart, and he already knew who did it. He just needed you to sort of catch yourself out. And I love that. I really do. But I just, yeah, you know, there's many things about this movie I could sit and talk about all day, every day. But yeah, just that little bit just came to mind. I had to mention it. Anyway, when Gene Wilder died in 2016, Peter Ostrom changed his social media profile to former child actor, veterinarian, inherited a chocolate factory on August the 29th, 2016. Oh, that's lovely. After reading the script, Gene Wilder said he would take the role of Willy Wonka under one condition. If, again, he wanted the lip. I already read that one. Ernest Ziegler, who played Grandpa George, was nearly blind from poison gas in World War I, so he was instructed to look for a red light to guide him when his character was meant to be looking in a specific direction. Wow, I didn't know that one. One more. So, in the DVD commentary, Peter Ostrom mentions that towards the end of the shoot, with him being the only kid left, he and Gene Wilder often ate lunch together. Fittingly, they finished those lunches by sharing a chocolate bar for dessert as they walked back to set. Oh, that's nice. That's really sweet. Oh, actually, no, I might save this one. I might use this one, actually. So, the chocolate river was made from 150,000 gallons of water, real chocolate and cream. The filmmakers had to change the formula for the chocolate river because originally the concoction they were using turned blood red. Because of the cream, the mixture began to spoil, and by the end of the filming, it smelled terrible. Michael Bolner, who played Augustus Gloop, later described it as dirty, stinky water. Yeah, blech, horrible, absolutely disgusting, but still magical, wonderful. You know, it's all for the cause, dear, as they say in The Grinch. Anyway, that has been my thoughts. That's that, really. Hope you all sort of loved it, enjoyed it. Hope you all have a fantastic Easter. Hope you get chocolatey wasted. Hope you all stick around. Things have been going really, really, really well for the podcast as of late. Things have been doing really well on TikTok. I'm getting like followers almost daily. I'm getting loads of likes and comments, and people are really lovely. So again, if you're not following me on there, please do. It's the same with Instagram as well. If you want to follow me on Instagram, a majority of what I post on Instagram is what I post on TikTok anyway. So you can either do both, or you can do whatever, which one suits you. I don't mind. Also, you can find me on Twitter at howdybeans_pod. And again, if you want to follow me on Spotify and YouTube, again, by all means, please do. I greatly appreciate it. If you haven't done so yet, make sure to rate the podcast 5 stars. And I've been your host, Luke the Elder Bean. I've absolutely had a wonderful, lovely time. You've all absolutely been fabulous. And I'll catch you all in the next one. Bye-bye and happy Easter.